Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Courtside. My name is Akash, and sitting across me is my co-host Connor. Welcome back, actually, to everybody, and then to ourselves as well. It's been quite a long time since our last episode. I think our last episode was May or sometime in the summer. The school year has started, so we're both high schoolers. That means we got a lot of work, especially at this time of the year. And then two, just stuff with life, and then also the pandemic still on kind of like a roller coaster at the Omicron variant coming up and down, other stuff. Just just the world. The world has problems. We all have problems, but we're happy to be back, especially during the holiday season. Christmas was yesterday. That was fun. I'm looking forward to New Year's celebrations and whatnot. But the spirits are high. Connor, do you have any words? Let's go. Welcome back intro to everybody.
Yeah, welcome back, all of our many, many listeners. We are going to start off this new 2022 campaign a little bit early. Obviously, we haven't been around for a significant part of 2021, obviously, because we are high school students on the GPA grind, if you know what I'm talking about. But it's just good to have everyone back. It's good to be able to discuss some of the topics we're going to talk about.
Yeah, facts. And I'm gonna be completely honest. Sports has been kind of wild. I haven't been able to like religiously follow, as I was talking to Connor before we started this episode. One, it's been kind of rocky, with like COVID and injuries. There's so many players. Like some teams are like completely depleted because of COVID protocols. And then just injuries are just natural. And then also sometimes it feels like as though the enthusiasm or the hype behind the league is likely dying down in parts of the season. But I think it should pick back up sometime. Hopefully all these guys who are injured and all these guys who are under protocols in all sports, really, not just basketball or baseball, really NFL, everything. Hopefully they get back in shape and are all set to go. But like Connor said, probably going to start fresh and bear with us. We may not be consistent all the time, but we're going to try to, do our best in these things. So to start off, basically, I think what we decided to talk about was the NBA. More so a recap, not diving too deep into anything. But Connor, what are your thoughts on so far, like season? I guess and to put into context, I guess the first semester of the NBA season. In relation to our school year, and then just 2021, it's almost over.
For the NBA, I would say it hasn't been like the quickest. You could tell like this is like the top group, this is like the playoff group. There hasn't been like that much divide other than the Warriors and the Suns at the top of the West, and probably the Nets in the East. But other than that, it hasn't really been into distinct groups, if you know what I'm saying. And then the biggest shock, I would say, would probably be the Lakers, who have struggled mightily, and people are even calling for Russell Westbrook to be traded, which I think is interesting because he's kind of, other than LeBron, they're kind of the only two players who have had an impact on anything this year. Because as a team, to be honest, they're all mostly over 35 years old. Not to be rude, but that's not going to be great in terms of an 82-game season.
Yeah, like you said, I guess the biggest standout performance or roller coaster from the NBA season has probably been the Lakers. I mean, to begin, at the start of the season, everybody was questioning the age or the overall age of the roster. I don't think there's like a single below 30 person on the team. Maybe wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's about right. Or at least the majority of the team is over 30. That being said, AD, as we know it, he's always injury prone, so he's already out. And then COVID stuff, of course. But yeah, like the two main superstars per se are LeBron and Russell Westbrook. But I get why people are really frustrated with Russell Westbrook. I think a Christmas Day game, I think yesterday, Lakers versus Nets, they were kind of doing well, and then they lost to a huge lead by the Nets. I think Russell Westbrook actually took the last game winning shot or the game saving shot, and LeBron was wide open. I was watching one of those clips, and Russell Westbrook tried to drive it to the basket when LeBron was open on the right wing, the 3-point line. So that was again like bring up a question like is Westbrook trying to like do it all for the team, or is he trying too hard? And I think something else was a really popping fact was that I think he had the worst plus or minus yesterday out of all the players on the team. Just pretty eye popping because he's supposed to be the second or the best player on the team when you put in factors like age and stuff like that. But yeah, the Lakers, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the playoffs. I really wouldn't, unless they get someone before the trade deadline that can really kind of carry as much or carry half the load of LeBron, because LeBron can't do it all. I mean, in his Cleveland days, yeah, he could, but then he was younger. The players around him were younger, and some of the players around him were better. But Laker LeBron is not the same caliber. Regardless of which say age does play a factor, and also just his experience and whatnot, and the players around him. So that's that. But yeah, it's been kind of a roller coaster for the Lakers. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they may make the eighth seed or seventh at best, but it's not looking too well. I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I find it hard to believe that a LeBron James led NBA team is not going to make the playoffs. He's only like 3 years out of his NBA Finals run, where he had like Iman Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Tristan Thompson as his surrounding cast. I just can't see that. This team is a lot better than the people on that team. I just can't see them missing the playoffs, especially with the play-in tournament. And he led that team to the finals with literally nobody else.
Yeah, and I think this is like one of those questions, right? Like, how does this affect like LeBron's legacy too? Right? Like, can LeBron alone do it? But then the other question is like, I'm posing this question, but is it more so of the players around him, or is it really chemistry or how they're working together, or like is it the coaching like lineup or like coaching plan? Because this is kind of like 2K often, right? Like the Laker team looks stacked on paper. Like you got AD, you got Russell Westbrook, you got LeBron, you got Wayne Ellington, not Wayne Ellington, my bad, or something like that. But yeah, you got all these players. The bench, I mean, we got Trevor Ariza, Carmelo. Now, I mean, some of the guys can go off on certain nights, but I don't know. Their play style is like the turnovers, the passing lanes. They all seem very like congested and not very fluid. But like when you compare it to another team, I guess like the Bulls right now, like you can see a pretty tangible difference, don't you think? Like, what's your thoughts? Is it stats and players, or is it like the game plan?
I don't think it's more of the game plan and coaching. I think if I'm being brutally honest, it's more of just like the age. Like did you see that one clip where I don't remember which, it might have been against when they got blown out by the Spurs. They had LeBron went for a fast break and then he pulled it out because he had no help. And he waited a couple seconds and the entire Spurs defense got back.
Yeah,
And none of his own players were coming. I'm like,
yeah, he was on the left wing, right?
How can you have like not one single player come to play offense? Like that just shows that either one, you're just tired and worn out because of age, injuries, whatever, but two, that could just mean you just don't even care. Like you're in the NBA and LeBron is the only one on the offensive side of the court. That's a big problem.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that clip. He's on the left wing on the 3-point line right next to it, and it was like LeBron versus the entire Spurs team, and no one was there to help LeBron. But yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because like LeBron is clearly carrying right now, but it's also like like against his legacy as a player because they're not nobody in like 10 years is gonna or like after LeBron retires, no one's gonna be like, oh, LeBron was carrying the season when the Lakers were doing bad. It's gonna be like LeBron wasn't able to uplift his teammates, even though he was doing a lot. So it's like it's kind of harsh towards LeBron, but I mean, as a legendary or like a goat status player, kind of also expected to, you know, do everything for your team no matter what. But probably enough Laker talk. Let's talk about the other teams. In the East, does anyone surprise you in particular? I mean, for me, I think the East has gotten significantly better this year. I think the level of talent in both conferences is almost equal now, and I like that because it's more competition, and it's also like players can. It's not like players are all just going to go to the West now. It's like free agency or trade is more uh, open ball or open sea.
Yeah, in the East, I mean, they have a few front runners, but I'm actually kind of surprised by how many like disappointing teams there's been. Like even I've watched like a decent amount of 76ers games this year, and it's just the offense is just not there. Like and the pace of the play is just like, oh my gosh, it's like without Ben Simmons, he gets so much hate, but I think I saw a stat that they went from 11th to 30th in fast breaks and pace of play. And they just have them and the Celtics, and then also the Knicks. They're all way below expectations. And then in the positive side, the team that I think is actually the Nets are. I mean, obviously they have the super team, they have the big three, but they don't have the big three. It's literally just KD carrying the entire roster. They had a game against the Sixers. I think it was before Christmas. It was like a couple of games before. He had Cam Thomas. He had like Patty Mills, and those were like his two best players. And he dropped like a 40-point triple double and beat the 76ers, who I said they're not very good, but they're still a decent middle of the road NBA team. And KD just led an entire group of bench players to beat them. So imagine what will happen when a healthy James Harden comes back, and then I don't know what's happening with Kyrie Irving. But like James Harden and KD alone, I think will probably make the finals. Maybe not get past the Warriors or the Suns, but still something to think about.
Yeah, it's pretty much facts what you said. I think the East. I may have to like say a few words back there, but yeah, some of the teams have like they started kind of hot. Like, for example, like the Raptors, right? They started off the season like they look pretty good, but now they're like what 10, 11, some seed like that. I think one of the biggest disappointments, like from a decent team or like kind of good team, was the Celtics. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can correct me or maybe you can agree, but the Celtics, like every season, the Celtics are like at least at least within like playoff contention, right? But now, I mean, they probably still are to some degree, but it's like it's very it's very dicey. Like I think right now they're in the ninth seed, and their top players are. I mean, Tatum goes off at certain times, but the defense. I mean, more so, I guess the offense for the Celtics. Uh, Sometimes it's like non-existent at points of the game. And then there's also like this. At one point of their season, I think they had like some tension between teammates on uh, like Jason Tatum or someone calling out another player on their roster, and that caused some lack of chemistry and just like tension between teammates. I think that's all cleared up now, but it's also like the question is who's the real star on the Celtics? I mean, from the outside, it looks like it's Jason Tatum or someone like that, but it can kind of be like any person on any given night. Like sometimes it's Jason Tatum, but then uh, it's also like Jalen Brown, sometimes Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, whatnot. But I think it's also because the Celtics team is pretty young. Even despite all these like great talented players, they're pretty young. It's not like LeBron and I don't know, like LeBron and Tatum as teammates, where LeBron has years of experience. They're both like Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. They're both young superstars who are pretty good, but they're still like developing experience in the league. But yeah, Celtics has been, I think, by far the most like kind of disappointing but shocking performance. The other really like surprising team has been the Cavs. Like I feel like they're so underrated, but they're actually doing pretty well. I don't know about like going to the finals. Like that's a extent that's kind of like long shot, but as a stretch. But I mean, for a young team who's in a rebuilding process, they've been doing pretty well, and I think this is where we're starting to see results. Same goes for the Wizards. I think their new players are starting to like adapt better into their new roles. But yeah,
Yeah, I agree with what you said about the Celtics. They're very like top heavy, if you know what I'm saying. Like they have two good players. I watched like the beginning of the Christmas game, the Christmas Day game between the Celtics and the Bucks yesterday, and they were up big. Like it was like 45-30. They've gotten to like a 20-point lead, and I went to a Christmas party, but then I looked at my phone a couple hours later, and I saw that they lost. I'm like, how do you how they just don't have any depth. It's just Jalen Brown had like 20 points in like the first quarter and a half, but then there was nothing after that. You need consistent, reliable options to go to when your star players just aren't providing like they should be, and they just don't have that.
yeah, and I think part of that is because like the positions also it's kind of interesting, but like Tatum plays power forward, and traditionally it's in traditional basketball it's like the guard or the yeah the guard or the backcourt who's facilitate or like leading the offense. Um, I mean, in the modern NBA, that's completely changed. Like you see with Giannis, he's a power forward, but he's the person who is the go-to offensive player on the team. But with I don't think Tatum it has become as like he hasn't developed that leadership position, I guess, on the team so far, or at least yet. I think he still has some time to go with that. He's pretty young, so obviously it's gonna nurture that in the future. But we'll see with that. I think in the East, the other, I mean, one of the high performers of the Bulls, the Bulls, I think by far, maybe, yeah, Bulls are probably the most fun team to watch. Uh, I think a lot of people agree with that. There's a difference between like the best team and then also the team that's most entertaining to watch. At the start of the season, the Hornets looked pretty fun to watch too. I think with Lamelo and Miles Bridges, but they've had some ups and downs, injuries and stuff. The Bulls are pretty entertaining to watch. With I mean, DeMar DeRozan is going off the season. I think it's kind of like his redemption season to from San Antonio to show that like he's still a star in this league. He's showing that. I think Vucevic has kind of gone under the radar. If he can step up, I feel like they're a pretty good challenge to other teams. I still think uh, like when it comes to playoffs, I think they might collapse slightly because of like their parts of the defense, and then also, um, I guess like yeah, but I feel like the defense might collapse slightly. That's just my take on that because at the end of the game, I think someone like the Bucks has more power to close games out. Um, but I do admire the play style of the Bulls. They are very fluid in passing. It's very similar to uh, like the play styles of the Warriors, even though they're not like 3-point dominant. It's a lot of passing, no selfishness, and I think that's what makes their team really stand out, is because they're very fluid in their teamwork. And then also like other teams in the East, the Heat are doing pretty good, but I don't think they're returning to the finals or something like that.
I think they're just like a good team, but not the top tier teams. And then also the other team in the top three categories to think about, like the Bucks. Obviously, they're the current reigning champions in the league. They struggled at the start of the season, but now they're back up to what, like third place, I think third seed. Um, I still think the Bucks are a legitimate contender. It's not gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be as easy as last year, or not as easy, but like as won't come as easy. I think that's like a different way to put my words in. Yeah, last year I think they were clearly like very dominant in their performance, but this year they may have to go undergo a few more challenges. What do you think about that?
Yeah, in terms of the East, if you give me a full healthy Nets roster, I I can't see anyone beating them. Like if they sort out whatever Kyrie is, I don't know what's going on, but if you sort that out, and then James Harden looked healthy yesterday, he had a 34-point triple double, I think. KG is just gonna be rock solid. He's my MVP so far. Even if you give me those two, but if you add on Kyrie, the Bulls, the Bucks, no one's gonna stand a chance. Like even last year, if the Nets were healthy, if Kyrie didn't get hurt, if Harden was healthy, and he wasn't healthy when he was playing against the Bucks, if both of them were healthy, they're winning the finals last year. And I'm gonna say they're gonna win the finals again this year. They would beat the Warriors if they were fully healthy and fix all of the COVID issues, the Kyrie issues. If they fix all of it, they will win the NBA Finals. But that's such a large variable to happen, as you saw last year in the playoffs. But yeah, if they don't sort that out, I could see the Bucks repeating. They wouldn't. I don't think they could beat the Warriors, but they probably would make the finals. I just don't think the Bulls have. They don't have any playoff experience other than DeRozan, and like none of them have finals experience. Like Zach LaVine, Vucevic, they've played for crappy teams in the past, and they've never ever had a shot at advancing in the playoffs. So that might come back to haunt them. I don't know. I'm just one of the talking heads, so you never know.
Yeah, I mean, if everything goes well for the Nets, they do look pretty strong. Um, I, the Nets is it's tricky because like I mean like the Kyrie situation is pretty. It's still a pretty big factor, right? Like, is he going to be able to if it's like a 5 game series, 7 game series? Like, is he going to be able to play those road games that he's going to like? Uh, the home games, my bad. The home games that he's going to miss. That could be a pretty big factor when it comes down to the line, right? Um, Again, it's really. I think once those things are confirmed, like whenever that is, then I think we will have a really solid idea of where these teams are going. Um, but yeah, in the East, I'm gonna say, that's like I guess that's a really great segue into kind of like a closing wrap up. In the East for the playoffs, I think. Uh, I mean, it's kind of. I'm just gonna. It looks pretty straightforward right now, but I think the Nets, the Bulls, and the Bucks are. I mean, coincidentally, they're top three teams, but I think if I'm going to stay that way, those three teams are going to uh, be like the front runners in the Eastern Conference. But of those three teams, I think I'm still going to say the Bucks are my choice for like top tier NBA contention, NBA title contention. The Nets, I don't know if James Harden uh can like do his thing in the finals or in the playoffs. Again, it's kind of like a James Harden stereotype now, but I don't know if he can do that. Um, and then to counter one of your claims, I don't. Katie is done phenomenal this year. Uh, he's been outstanding. He has been carrying the team literally, like 40 bombs, like consistently, 50 bombs, 30 bombs, like consistently over and over again. It's clear. I think he's number 2 in the MVP race. But I still think Steph is the rightful candidate. I just think they're both Steph and KD. I think people would agree that they are both carrying their respective teams, right? Like KD, he's carrying in the sense that his other co-stars are out or periodically out. But at least KD has James Harden from time to time, uh, and he also has his potential super team. Uh, Steph doesn't. Steph took a team that was complete dog water like a few seasons ago or sometime back when he was injured. But Steph has shown that he is like probably the best player in the East right now. I mean, sorry, the West. Um, the team, especially when Clay comes back, the Warriors are like downright one of the number one options for NBA contention. Um, but I feel like Steph has contributed just more like with less help, but also leading the team, not just playing and scoring points, but also leading the rest of his teammates. But it's very close between KD and Steph. I wouldn't choose anybody else for MVP. I feel those two are the most deserving candidates. But you know what? I'll head it over. I'll hand it over to you. What's your picks for the Western Conference as far as playoffs go, and then maybe any other points as well?
Yeah, for the West, I mean, it's still a two-headed monster between the Warriors and the Suns, because I just don't see the only team that I could see making a run would be if the Lakers figure anything out. But there's so many things going wrong with their organization. It's just not going to happen. That's how I feel. But then in terms of the Warriors versus the Suns, I feel like the Suns, they had their chance. Chris Paul he's still an amazing player, maybe an all-star, but if you throw in a healthy Clay, if Clay Thompson is healthy, they aren't losing in the Western Conference, especially if they get home court, if they get the number 1 seed. They get Clay back. They have Draymond, who's number 1 in Defensive Player of the Year, by the way. They have Steph, who you said, yeah, I agree. Steph or KD should get MVP. And by the way, MVP doesn't really matter that much in terms of, I mean, I'd say playoff pedigree, playoff, how many finals MVPs, championships, NBA finals you make is way more important than how many MVPs you win.
Oh yeah,
But getting back to
that's MVP is really only a matter of like legacy, but the titles are obviously important. But yeah, go ahead.
And then you even look at the MVPs. How many of them actually even made the finals? Even made the conference finals? You see, Jokic lost. Giannis both times lost. Curry, they were just stacked. To be honest, that was just a crazy Golden State team. That was unfair. But then, if I'm getting back to my NBA Finals predictions, I would say, barring any injuries, which are incredibly possible and likely to happen, I would say the Nets and the Warriors, if they're healthy, and by the way, what a spectacular finals that would be. That gives me like goosebumps thinking about like growing up with the Cavs versus the Warriors 4 years in a row. It could be pretty, if that happens, like, oh my gosh, as an NBA fan, like how amazing that would be to see
Warriors
Curry,
versus Nets?
Clay, Draymond versus KD, Kyrie, and Harden. Like,
oh yeah,
can you imagine that finals?
Cool. Yeah, that would be pretty fun to watch too. Like you said, those teams in the East. I mean West. My bad. I keep saying East, but yeah, Warriors are probably the front runner. Behind, in front of the Suns. My bad. The Suns, like you said, Suns probably had their best chance last year. Yeah, they're not at their. They're good. They're really great, but I still think the Warriors in a 7-game series will come out. I guess the next best behind those two teams is probably it's really hard. The West has actually dropped. Well, like what I mean is that like the West last year was pretty good. It was really good. I mean, some of these teams like the Mavericks, for example. I'm a Mavericks fan. You know that eighth place. I mean, eighth seed. Really, last year I think we were like fourth, fifth. This year, it's just so evident that we don't have like the talent, the capability of making the finals anywhere near the finals. Really, it's been pretty depressing as a Mavs fan. And then like other teams like the Trailblazers, like what is going on over there? Um, and then also Clippers, like I mean, at least they don't have Kawhi right now, but Paul George is doing pretty well. So I mean, I guess besides the Warriors and the Suns, I'm gonna take the Jazz. They're really the only other like possibility in the West. The Lakers, I mean, unless everything is like gets back to normal for them, they're not in contention. Uh, yeah, those are great points. But yeah, I mean that's kind of like our recap of the NBA season so far. We're hoping to get back on here in the coming future. We'll probably go more deep into specific teams, rumors, trades. Of course, the trade deadline is February, so that's rumors are going to start to pile up in the near future as well. But yeah, you guys know where to catch us. Remember to head to our Instagram page at _courtside_. Hit us up there. Any questions, any comments, look out for a post. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and also happy holidays to everybody. But yeah, without further ado, peace.